at Shawnee. This is from our Grand Casino cam. Meteorologist Shelby Hayes in for Brad Souter. She's telling us it's going to be a little bit cooler today, but still going to be a beautiful day.
Hey, what's up guys? Tyler here with Secure Team. Well, we've got a list of things to talk about today. Some of them fascinating, some of them downright scary. But the first thing that I want to dive into is a piece of UFO footage here that I've come across taken during a newscast out of Oklahoma City. And as you just saw, we have one of these weather cameras that give us this view over the city. And just before the short clip ends, we see a luminescent object blasting through the sky, heading down almost like you would think of a plane landing on a runway. However, this object here is not a plane, and there is no runway, and people are having a lot of trouble trying to figure out just what it is. Now, unfortunately, the camera cuts out just before the thing almost looks to touch down on ground, but we still have a very fascinating UFO sighting here because whatever this thing is, it's moving at what some have said is hundreds of miles per hour, if not more. And if you look at the vehicles moving in the background, you can see that this is a normal speed video. This is not time-lapse, this is not sped up, because that's what I originally thought. It becomes evident that no, it's all normal speed. We see the cars on the highway in the distance. We can see another car in the foreground driving across this parking lot here, so nothing's been sped up. And so far, I have not been able to come up with a legitimate answer as to what this object could be. Now, what I can say is that if any of you have ever been to an airport or watched footage of airplanes landing, they don't zip in at hundreds of miles an hour as if they were just shot out of a cannon, like this object is doing. Now, I've also never seen a drone move quite this fast, unless it's a, high-end government drone. But again, those types of drones don't glow. So once again, we're back to square one. And so I wanted to post this here, and despite this being such a short clip, we don't have any more information, it is extremely fascinating. It's one of the more fascinating UFO clips that I've seen. So the question is, what is this object? And indeed, how fast was it going? That is the question. So you guys let me know what you think down below. And remember, if you guys have your own UFO footage, be sure to email me, or you can upload it to YouTube and then email me the link to the video if that is easier. So now in other news, I don't know if you guys have heard about this, and it just may make you think twice about where you're sitting that internet router in your house. A new experiment has just been released, kind of frightening, that displays the effects of Wi-Fi radiation, as in the effect of having your normal everyday phone and router and the signal coming from it and the effect that it has on you and on virtually all living things. And that, and the answer to it, some are saying has just been revealed after a group of 9th grade girls came up with an idea. And so they took a bunch of trays and they filled them up with seeds. They placed 6 in one room away from an internet router and placed the other 6 right next to the internet router. They poured water on the seeds, gave them the same amount of sunlight, everything was identical, and after 12 days, this is the tray that was away from the Wi-Fi signal, and this is the tray that was exposed to it. And so after these 12 days, the results were clear that these crest seeds, as they're called, that were placed next to this router, which by the way broadcasts the same type of radiation as an ordinary cell phone, caused these seeds to wither. They wouldn't grow. One of the girls said, quote, "It is truly frightening that there is so much effect, so we were very shocked by the result." A renowned professor at the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm, Sweden, by the name of Ali Johansson, caught wind of this experiment and was extremely impressed, as have been other researchers who have looked at it, and will now repeat this experiment with a Belgian research colleague. And likewise, you guys can find other videos online where you get the same effect. Time and time again, where you're trying to grow seeds or whatever it is, you place them next to a router, you place one farther away, and it's almost like you're sitting this stuff next to an orb of plutonium. I mean, it's crazy. And most of us were taught to believe that the signals coming out of our phones and our routers were harmless. And yet, experiments like this have proved that this electronic radiation emission is not harmless. And that after seeing it, many of you may not want to be sleeping with your phone next to your bed or your ear anymore, and you just may want to reorganize where you're putting your routers and other equipment that puts out similar signals. And the more you research into this, the more you find out that the phone companies and the router companies have known about this stuff for years. Even massive companies such as Verizon and T-Mobile, in their annual financial reports, have revealed that the phone companies acknowledge that they are subject to litigation in relation to these health effects. They have warned that it may result in damages that are significant. If you guys remember Nokia, which was once the biggest telecommunications company in the world, well, it was the defendant in a total of 19 different lawsuits that were filed in Washington, D.C., which alleged that radio emissions coming from cell phones have been the cause of brain tumors. And while you could say, well, a lawsuit's just a lawsuit, anyone can push one of those, it could be frivolous, I think an experiment like this shows without a doubt that there is at the very least some sort of effect coming from your router, coming from your phone. And that it's at least good to be proactive, not sleep with your phone next to your ear, put your router someplace that's not near food or where you sit every single night, because, this is a multi-trillion-dollar business. And obviously they are hiding the truth. They've admitted it, but they are hiding it. And I'm sure they do not like experiments like this coming out, and I'm sure we'll come forth and attempt to rip them to shreds. So tell me what you guys think about this. Have any of you had any or suffered any effects from things like routers and cell phones? I'd sure like to hear about it, because this is starting to make me think that maybe one of these random headaches or migraines I get every now and then, and that I can never find a cause for, may be coming from this little box sitting next to me with lights on it. And that is a scary thought. Now, lastly today, a very strange story here, and what some are saying could be linked to spontaneous teleportation. After a patient that was in the hospital for an operation vanished and then was found no longer living in the hospital ceiling. And so far, they can't explain the mystery behind it. And it occurred at the Stellenbosch Hospital in South Africa, where a 61-year-old man who was admitted to the hospital to undergo surgery on his abdomen was sitting in recovery after having the surgery done, was completely sedated and out of it, and on one of the days a nurse came into the room where the man was safely in his bed asleep. She then left the room for under 1 minute. And this is what's creepy. Under 1 minute, left the room to go and fetch clean linen for the beds, and when she came back into the room, the man had disappeared from the bed with which he had been laying, and which was said that he could not move from. The staff at the hospital, along with police, began investigating the case and have no idea how he disappeared from his bed in under a minute when he was sedated and out of it. And he could not move to begin with. He had just had major surgery on his stomach, and boom, flash, he's gone. Fast forward 13 days later, where his remains were found in the hospital ceiling, in an area that was described as being isolated and impossible to get into, not just from the room he was in, but impossible seeing as the man had just had surgery, he could not move, he was asleep, and it occurred in less than a minute from the time it took from the nurse to leave the room and walk back in. Police are completely baffled as to how this 61-year-old man could have possibly just got out of his bed. Alright, that's first of all, let alone climb up into the ceiling in a remote area without breaking anything, without breaking the ceiling. And again, they had no trace of him for nearly 2 weeks. And the whole story is just really, really creepy. And it's not just me saying that, okay? It's the cops that are creeped out. It's the staff, the doctors, the nurses. They're all baffled. And they are saying that this couldn't have happened under normal circumstances. He couldn't have gotten out of the bed to begin with. And furthermore, the area up in the ceiling that he was found was surrounded by fiberglass. And not only that, the ceiling was such that it didn't have those little panels that you could just remove. The ceiling was hard, to the point where they had to cut into it to get the guy out. So you all tell me how the hell he got up there. And with that, that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you all for stopping by and supporting the channel. Be sure to share and subscribe on your way out. I really appreciate it. And stay tuned. I've got more coming, and I'll see you back soon.